Order. Which means that's on the agenda.
I'd like to add discussion on the proposed buyout of 977 Simonsville Road.
And I would like to add, if I could, looking at a tax map, our tax maps that we just had redone with ARPA money. We'd like to look at a maintenance contract because we can't have any changes made as we find things that need to be fixed without a maintenance contract. And, that was it.
That old business or new?
New business.
New business, okay.
I'd just like to add a quick discussion on the Christmas tree road.
Oh, yeah.
So that was longer. I make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Back in the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes of April 22nd as written.
And I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We don't have any public here, so on to new business. Discussion about the next meeting date.
It's
So the
Memorial
next
Day.
meeting falls on a holiday.
Mm.
So I just wanted to have everybody here in public on the record say what, if you want to change that date or if you all want to move forward with holding it on that date.
I make a motion to change next meeting to Tuesday, May 28th at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
And I will not be here. Sorry, guys.
Any discussion on that?
Well, it sounds good to me.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Catering permit application.
Okay. So through the Department of Lottery and Liquor, we have a catering application. The select board basically votes and just signs off on this. It all goes through their portal. A resident has hired a catering company and the caterer is required to fill this license out to serve alcohol at, it's a one event, it's a wedding at the people's private home. The information's on here, you can pass it around. I did look, so I have the ability to go in the portal and kind of dig through the layers, and I looked them up. They're well-known high-end caterer, and they have no violations on record. And like I said, it's going to be held at Stephen and Helen Rubino's home, which is way out Moose Walk Lane.
Oh.
So-
It's the only house
Yeah.
out there.
Yes.
Yep.
So I
It's-
suspect it's not going to bother anybody.
Yeah.
It's next
Yeah.
summer or this?
It's this coming summer. The permit itself lasts for a year. That's the
Oh.
way they do it. I think it's, might be in September.
September 14th, it looks like. Start date and time of the event, September 14th. I need to look it up, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I move that we
Except
accept that and sign it.
Yeah, I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye. Just one signature, or is everybody?
I think there are lines on there. There might be three. Are there three? Or there's just one?
Nope.
That's the end ones.
None. Just open space at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Well, Chris, if you just want to sign it, I actually go in the portal and push it on to its next step.
Just
So as
sign
long
the
as I
bottom.
have the hard copy with a signature, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, wedding.
I know, I wasn't gonna say the date, because I thought they might not want people to know.
No.
All right, the next discussion is the buyout.
I'm gonna come join you over here because I have
Awesome.
things to say. So,
Does everybody know what we're talking about? The one with the garage by the river?
Oh,
I know the one with the
On
garage by
Route
the
11.
river,
That's
but
what
I
we're talking
don't
about.
understand what's
I don't
going
know
on.
what-
So, but I just want to make sure everybody knew what property we were
Yes.
talking
yeah,
about.
it's
No,
one where
I
the
don't.
garage looks.
No, she's going to explain it. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure we knew which one we were
I don't
talking
know.
about.
Susan doesn't, so we'll explain where it is. Do you know where Irene Gordon's house used to be and she got a FEMA buyout?
Yeah.
The very next house after the river, there's a house and then there's a garage that's now hanging over the edge of the river,
Is that going towards Chester?
Yes.
going
Yeah.
toward Chester.
So Irene was on one side of the bridge. This place is on the
Oh.
Chester side.
Okay.
I'm not sure how it started. I believe the owner looked into a FEMA buyout. I don't know for sure, but this is not a FEMA buyout. The owner has requested a buyout through a watershed program through the Department of Public Safety. When the gentleman came in to speak to me about it, he said, "Oh no, the town doesn't have to get involved. It's a grant and, this is what will happen. It'll be a buyout. The property will have to be turned into green space, just like Irene Gordon's. It would look exactly the same." They sent me the paperwork. This was a couple of months ago.
They, the homeowner.
No, the Department of Public Safety.
Okay.
I have had very little contact with the owner. He called the other day to find out how come things hadn't moved forward, and so that got the Department of Public Safety and us kind of back on, where were we in this process? So I haven't spoken with him until the other day. When the paperwork first came that the Department of Public Safety was asking to have signed, it has, 19 things on the list, Chris?
Something like that.
That the town of Andover agrees, the town of Andover attests to, and it's saying that because this money, I guess, is a version of some of the COVID money from somewhere else, not our ARPA COVID money, that somehow this buyout is utilizing that money. So a few things on the list of things they're asking the town to sign says, I attest that this is due to the COVID emergency. And I said, no, I'm not signing that. It's saying that I attest to this having to do with economic loss from COVID. I said, but it isn't.
No.
So they briefly explained it at the time. I just let the form go. I thought that they were going to carry on without us involved. And that wasn't the
You don't want the
case.
town attesting to that.
No,
Oh.
I don't. So she sent an email the other day. So I went through, same questionnaire, 19 questions, and it's attesting to all these things. So I printed out this was her ultimate response. So here are copies for all of you. The first part is just about editing the form. Oh, can I?
I'll just read over them.
So what I said, at the very bottom of the page where there's a little box and it says 2, this is one of the things they want us to check and sign. It says, as required by federal law, the SFR will only be used for approved economic support or costs incurred during the period in response to the COVID public health emergency. I am not going to attest to that because that has nothing to do with what they're requesting.
Right.
Is the implication though that if we're still accepting the ARPA money, that we're basically saying this was to
Well, the
help us
idea is-
recover
So
No,
from
And it
COVID?
sounds
our
like they're-
ARPA money is the town of Andover's ARPA money. We have all that we're going to get. We have to obligate it by the end of this year. The Department of Public Safety has what they're calling a pot of money. And she explains right here, it said, well, Jeanette, okay, I fixed your form. ARPA in general is COVID-related funding, and our pot of money is linked to it through clean water. This section of funding was earmarked to improve access to clean drinking water and improve wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. Wastewater infrastructure to me means municipal sewer systems or municipal water systems. She says, I believe our program falls under the stormwater infrastructure. For example, buyouts of flood-prone properties that are returned to green space allow for natural management of stormwater. So the award requires everything listed on the form and requires the town to sign off on all of that.
And
I highly disagree with that comment
That is
because that's
not stormwater.
that's like a floodplain idea, like buying a house that's in a field that gets flooded. And that's
And you
not
know
the
where the
case.
house is,
yeah,
right?
that's not the case here. I mean, that's what I see. I see them buying out houses that the watershed
Right.
goes out of but this is The house is far
I'm
from.
still concerned about it being ARPA funds and then being able to tap into our ARPA.
They're
They
not
aren't.
tapping
It
into
isn't.
ours.
It isn't.
Okay, because
It
I
has
watched
nothing to do with
So
town of
my
Andover's
question would
money.
be, if this has nothing to do with us, then why do we have
Right.
to sign off on it
Because
at
it
all?
becomes the town's property if it was fully bought out.
Right.
The green space.
And
And
they
you
write it
lose.
as a grant, and so the town, they can't give a grant to one homeowner, they can give the grant to the town. So we're the middleman for the money, which is exactly what happened when Mrs. Gordon's house was bought out by FEMA, but this isn't even FEMA.
Okay, I get it
And
now.
I completely disagree that this has anything to do with stormwater infrastructure. I also feel like with housing shortages the way they are,
Right.
you all would be signing off on them demolishing a house that someone could be living in.
A really
And
perfectly good house.
it also it affects the grand list. The tax revenue goes away, and that's why it should be a town choice for sure. I mean, that's what I ultimately see is that's a tax burden on the rest of the taxpayers because that revenue is not there. If it becomes town property, there's zero tax revenue from what used to be.
Could
Whatever used to be there, it's going to cause the grand list to change.
the homeowner just put it on the market and sell it?
Sure.
That's
So-
anybody could do. Yeah.
Or
So
they
when
just-
I finally spoke to him a few days ago, when he was asking what the status of this was, I said, "Can I just ask you a question?" I said, "Have you considered putting a for sale sign out front?" I said, "With the way the real estate market is," I said, "you might have quite a bit of interest in it because realistically, it's the garage that's
Yeah,
compromised,
right.
not the house.
And the house is far away from that.
And I don't foresee a flood that we'll see getting
Right.
to the house.
Right,
That's just my opinion."
right.
And he said, I did have somebody offer me something for it, but it was pennies on the dollar. But if you know of somebody who's interested, you can have them contact me. Well, that's not my job.
Right.
And again, I would ask, well, why aren't you putting a for sale sign outside? If it's a burden
Yeah.
to fix it, you're worried about losing the garage. I don't understand
Take the garage down.
this.
Throw up some nice wall there.
So as a reminder, this particular program they're talking about is the same program that Sally Pikard looked into when she wanted Nancy Brook shored up near her house down in Boynton Hollow, and you went and looked at it and said, "No, we are not doing this." So that made me stop and say, "Wait a second,
We already denied.
you don't have to do this."
Right.
So, I mean, you all can do what you want. I don't think we have the bandwidth, first of all, because it would be your time or my time to follow up. They do an appraisal. Someone has to follow up and make sure the electrician shuts the power off and closes up the sewer or the septic.
Also,
and
say that it happens. Eventually, Andover's going to have to maintain that or do whatever has to be done to make it now green space where there's no septic and the environmental part of it and the whole thing.
And it has to be checked, which Irene Gordon's place has to be checked every few years,
Right.
and I have to fill out paperwork
Right.
to get an inspection
Also,
done.
and this is just me, I'm not speaking for the whole board, but as a board member, my opinion would be that this is us getting our spoon in a soup that's not our responsibility, nor do we want to bring Andover into it.
So like Jeanette just said, we've had an application like this for that program put in front of us before,
Right.
and we felt that it wasn't,
Right.
didn't necessarily fall under that.
And, perhaps my thought would be if you choose not to sign off on this, that perhaps the letter comes from you all. Chris is very good at wordsmithing, if you all remember. But I guess I would say to them, for whatever reasons, if the board chooses not to, here's why. And at the end of the day, there's a housing shortage. How can we in good
'Cause that's gotta
conscience
be a-
agree to let you knock down a perfectly good house?
like a nice little 2 or 3 bedroom house for some family that could be, that is.
They could put a for sale sign out front so
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
So
You have plenty of insurance?
It sounds like,
probably not.
just the fact that there's still this pot of money cooking around, lurking around, maybe other towns have turned it down also, and maybe it's kind of like a little football that they're tossing around, because usually this money would have gotten used up by now.
Well, it's similar, I believe, to our ARPA money, where you have a certain period
Yeah,
of
so they're
time. So
just-
we're still
Yeah, it's the
sitting on hours
same.
too.
Yeah,
And so this department is trying to find
yeah,
ways
I
to
think they're trying
utilize
to
it.
get rid of it.
I would
Yeah.
love to know if they even made a site visit. Do they know what it looks like and how far from
Yeah.
the house across the road is so much
right.
closer to the river than
Right.
this house is.
Also, this house is not an old house. It's not like a ramshackle falling down. I mean, it's for some young couple with one child, it would be a perfect spot.
Well, there's thousands of people that would like to buy a house inexpensively.
Right.
Maybe they're thinking they will
I'm
get
not
more money
familiar
for this
with the
program.
exact property, but based on what I hear, it sounds like a no-brainer
It's a
that
double wide, I
they
believe.
should sell it
Yeah.
to somebody that could use it.
They could sell the house itself right off the property, even.
Right, and I even suggested
Right.
that to him. I said, well, I think the house could probably
It
be
could be
moved
moved.
right off that
So could the
property and
garage probably.
relocated. So.
You could back a trailer in the garage, jack it up and
You
move
can
it.
jack it up and
Yeah.
take it. Yeah. I know. I've often thought that
Put it somewhere else on the property.
you could.
Yeah.
I wonder how many acres they have there.
I have no intentions of, I'll go say that, I don't plan on signing this, so.
So I guess what I would suggest is that you have a vote as to whether or not you're going to, the town is going to participate in this program, and then suggest that a letter, doesn't even have to be long, goes back to the woman on this email. And Steve Libby is the gentleman I spoke with originally. I'm not sure what role he plays in this, and you know, the owner, Mr. Houghton, may wanna come and talk to you or come on Zoom and talk to the select board during a meeting and understand why, or maybe just a phone call directly with him if he has
And
questions.
not that it necessarily matters, but does that person live in that house? Like constantly live there?
No,
It's
no.
a second.
It was a
home.
rental.
It's a second
I believe it was a rental. Or
Yeah, it may have
Yeah,
been like a
like an-
long-term rental.
Alright, well, I'm gonna move that we don't get involved in this and that we do send some type of a letter, just letting them know the reasons why.
Yeah, I second that.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. So the map contract,
So CAI Technologies updated our tax maps for us and did a very nice job. But with any sort of living document, things change, little pieces of information come to light, particularly with the thoroughness and attention to detail that Jonathan has. He catches things. So he's been building up a list for a little while, and there was a property that just came up recently that this company had copied their information from before a survey was done, and the survey actually changes the acreage, so the tax maps currently are incorrect for that one property. And some lines aren't quite in the right places and things could be updated. So I just reached out and asked what their maintenance options are, so Franco sent us a potential contract. It's $500 for a year, and he lists on here what that covers. And it's certainly, again, something the ARPA funds could be used for. So I didn't know if you might wanna take a look. I would
yeah, I actually read that
Yeah,
before I came in.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
love to
Yeah.
have that,
Yeah.
because I would
I
like to
think it's a
have
good
the
idea.
most
that was a
accurate maps.
reasonable price too.
I
Yeah.
think it's a very reasonable price. And there is is it $20 for any additional changes? But even that is.
So once we could potentially allocate more than 1 year. Just this year, you have to say, we're gonna use hypothetically use $500 for a maintenance contract for the next 5 years. I
Yeah.
believe that would fall into that, but you have to earmark it by this year.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
too, is we have to have the money obligated by December, but you have 2 more years after that to use it. So I also wanted to reach out to him and ask, since if you all approve this, could it be worded as a multi-year contract so that
So that we
that
could.
money is
Yeah.
obligated, it's paid for the next few years?
So I'm gonna move that we do this and that we have you reach out to him about a multi-year contract.
Using the ARPA.
Using the ARPA funds.
Yep, I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Loan discussion.
Okay, my next piece of paper. That's why I moved over here. I did send that out. I don't know if you had the opportunity to take a look at it. So I reached out to a gentleman, Michael at M&T Bank. That's who Julie used with the town of Chester for the same exact reason. It's called the current expense note. She said, yep, I jumped right in and took out that, and we approved taking out that note because we just knew that our FEMA money wasn't gonna get here quickly enough to cover current expenses. So he sent this term proposal, and so I've brought it for all of you to consider.
How is our FEMA money, I know that's down on our agenda here,
But it's
Has
pertinent,
any-
certainly.
coming in?
So today is Money Monday.
Nice.
We got $21,000 in the bank today from FEMA, so that was good. It's a drop in the bucket still, but it's good. It's for Howard Hill and Hilltop Road. 4 more of our projects are obligated, so even Schmidt Road, which is awaiting hydraulic studies, has been obligated, so that makes me think they're gonna keep pushing the paperwork through and perhaps assume that the hydraulic studies are gonna come back, tell us certain information. If we have to do anything different on that road, it's actually gonna fall under mitigation anyway. We've already spent the money, the road is fixed as best as we can, or what we can do now without further studies, so I'm hoping that's why they've obligated it. And that project is a $200,000 project, so we have Schmidt Road, I don't have my list. There are 4 roads that are what's called obligated, so based on getting money today from Howard Hill and Hilltop, it's taking about 6 weeks from the point of obligation to seeing money in the bank. So that's where we're at. So 21,000, drop in the bucket. We're still running $300,000 in the negative on paper.
And they did the pavement on North Hills, and weren't we waiting for that pavement to submit that claim?
Yes,
So-
we are
so
waiting to
that's-
get it paved so that it's a
Some of
complete
it was
project.
paved going down.
It's done, it's done,
Oh, it's done?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
last week.
Yeah, yeah.
I
'cause
never even saw them in
I
town.
drove on it. It was beautiful.
Well, that's awesome. So as soon as,
So we can put that through then.
yes, and
Okay.
that's a big one. Well, that's good to know. Now I need to make sure I finalized all the paperwork for North Hill because that's a $200,000 project also.
I still think it's with how slow it comes in. This one has no prepayment, pay an early penalty at all.
It
Oh,
doesn't,
yeah, I
but
think
it-
we should do it.
It's
And the
it's a big interest, but even if it's only utilized for 1 month and one of those big ones come in and it's paid back, it
And just
still
as a reminder,
is
3 weeks from
more than a
today,
buffer is the
we owe the state of Vermont $773,000 in education taxes.
Wow.
That's the second installment. We have $400,000 that we can send.
so
as
that
of
would
today.
make
And that's not gonna get any bigger in the next 3 weeks.
and that would make that almost be able to be paid in full. Because there is a penalty for that. We discussed that
Yeah.
prior. So that amount of money in this loan could make that payment be in full. Am I doing that math right in my head?
It'll be
It's
close,
close.
and I don't know if you wanna consider,
wanna-
I threw 300 at Mr. Kegler. I don't know if you would wanna go back and actually go, we thought about it, maybe 400.
Because
Just
that wouldn't help the running 300 in the negative. That's the general fund we're talking
Right,
about.
that's
So
not
that
even gonna
wouldn't
help
put
that,
all
all
of
this
that
is gonna
wouldn't-
do
Educational.
is
That's
pay our
all.
education taxes. So that we keep getting,
And so the interest on our educational tax is how much again? Do you know?
I have to read it, so there's a financial penalty and then there's an interest rate per day.
And then
honestly,
the
I'd have
interest
to
on
do
this,
it.
I'm just doing apples to oranges here, the
Well,
interest
the
rate
other
on this
problem with the
is-
education tax is, and I don't know how long this goes, and I don't remember if it says on the form, Chris, if we don't pay that, the state will start withholding grant money. So I don't know if that means they'll withhold our FEMA money
Oh,
because the
right.
state is the last one to touch it,
Right,
and if we haven't paid
If
this,
there's an overdue bill for the day.
Yeah,
I don't
let's
care
not
for
go
the
there.
sound of having I've never cared for having the sound of overdue education tax. I understand if there was no money, but we have the ability to borrow it. And I know we were looking at $100,000 before, but now we're looking at a number that really could take a weight off the shoulders for a minute. I know it's not a permanent fix, but it's a lot.
yeah.
And no, I don't like the interest rate, but that's a lot better than it would be for an everyday person taking out a loan like that right now. So
And just, I know how you all felt about the Vermont Bond Bank offer. I did speak with, I don't remember what town it was, and they had the exact same reaction that you all did, is it was too little money. We were gonna have to give up
that's
half
one,
of every FEMA
that
reimbursement,
21,000
so.
would have been
Right.
10.5 would have went right back to paying that back.
Exactly.
It
So
right out of it would have been like
you all weren't the only ones thinking along
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
lines. Oh, and another update, I reached out to my person who's doing Weston Andover Road, which is a whole separate project from FEMA, and finally got what I believe to be the last of the paperwork after. Actually, where are we? Well, I have one of the sets ready, or this paperwork's ready, but the other project isn't. And I said, gosh, we're in dire financial straits. I said, if you only can do one at a time, then can you please? And then 4 hours later, I had all the paperwork. So I did everything on Friday afternoon and got that sent back to her, signed and all of that. So that's going to be, we will get reimbursed, I think it's $250,000. That would be huge if that shows up in the next couple of weeks. And again, in conjunction with the loan, would put us in a much better place until municipal taxes start
if
coming.
that comes in and we were to take out a hypothetical $300,000 loan, we would be almost back to square with the general fund and pay the education on
But
time.
you're saying it would be better maybe at 4.
Well, that's my
It's-
suggestion, to make sure we can pay the education
Yeah.
tax in full and start putting something toward the general fund, which, as I said, right now is operating at negative
Negative.
$330,000.
Do we have to take it all if
Yes,
we?
that's the way it's the way it states. It
So-
states rather than a line of credit. You want to take it all.
You can't just take some of it, but we could immediately pay back 100,000
Exactly.
But we're
And
still
it's-
gonna have the interest on it. It's a
on the
30,
whole thing.
360-day interest. So is that meaning
Like you have to, even if we paid back half of it really fast, we have to
we
pay
still have to
the
pay the
interest on the whole
30%?
thing? Wow,
5 point,
well then,
correct?
I don't know how interest
5.35.
accrues, honestly. I think
On-
that breaks
it's on
down
a
to a
30
per
day.
day. I think it breaks down to a per day amount. It's not 5% every single day.
No, but is it a 5% at 30 days? So what I'm saying is
Oh,
at
I see
30
what you're saying.
days, we're not gonna pay it back in 30 days. So are we, and we've already taken the 300 or 400 hypothetically out. At 30 days, it will be at that 5.35%. So even if we were to, the paying it off, there's no pre-payoff penalties. We're still gonna always pay that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I read this.
yeah, I don't know.
And it requires the attorney to look at it anyway. So that's a
Right.
question that could be asked, right? Because it has to be looked at.
Yeah, and we'll have to have a letter just like we did for Vermont Bond Bank.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kegler was confident that they could probably just revise the letter they already did, so hopefully it won't be another
Another
$700
Yeah.
to have a new one
I
written.
agree about the interest, but I don't see another way without it just being day by day and all the stress
I
on
just want us all to know that if I'm
everybody.
reading that
Very
part,
much, yeah. It's
that it isn't, even if we pay it off early,
you know,
it doesn't bring our interest down. It's the way I'm reading it now.
And down here,
But it's worth looking
repayment,
into.
down here it says principal and interest shall be due and payable in full at maturity,
Yeah, that's 1 year.
the 1 year,
So you'd
right?
have to pay up all the interest, you'd have to pay all the interest at 1 year and the loan itself.
Right.
But the way the interest rate and the way it's written out here, that it will incur interest on a 30/360 day basis.
So
So it
every
tells
30
me
days.
that at 30 days, we've got 300,000 or 400, that we are gonna pay the 5.35, even if we paid it off 2 months from now,
Right,
that we would pay the 5.35%.
that would have to be clarified because it would change. A loan, the interest amount changes every month when you make a payment,
Right.
but the principal is less.
Yep.
So that would have to be clarified
Yes, that's
legally,
what
in my opinion,
right.
because I don't know. I'm not going to assume
no,
that when you take what I assume is like a $35,000 to $40,000 a month payment on a loan that size with that interest rate. This is what I just did, a rough figure. I don't have
Yeah.
an interest calculator.
Right,
That would change every month
Right,
exponentially
right,
because
right.
you're taking that much money off of the principal also.
Or how much of it is
But-
it going towards?
Correct.
How much
The
of it is
first
going
month
towards
it was,
interest?
yeah, the
Is it
first
all
month and the
interest?
12th month are a lot
No.
different.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And and my straight up, I just don't feel like there's any other option. Because we can't run what I'm hearing is $700,000 in the red right now. Because when that's due, if they held back any amount of money that we've been waiting for in FEMA, we're going the wrong way. And the interest is something that can be, we know what it is.
right.
We know what we're going to pay
Well,
in
if we don't have a
interest.
choice, we don't have a choice.
Correct. But we know what it's going to be.
Mhm.
We know if we
This is
take
true.
out 300, we know what that's going to be. We take out 400, we can pay the school. And the first amount of money that comes in, I think it should go back to making the general fund before the loan's paid off, because then you're square. That's just my opinion. It's tough, but we're short. What I'm hearing is
So can-
700,000. And
Can you look into, we need to run it by a lawyer.
what do you think? I know it's a lot of interest,
Well, I think
but
the time though, you're saying that
Yeah,
in 3 weeks'
you're right.
time, that tax bill's due. The school tax is due in 3 weeks.
By the end of July, if we don't pay it up, you start withholding our.
if they were to withhold something, it would put
Would
us
be
going the
the
wrong
Be
way.
the end of the world.
Then you're in a vicious circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right, exactly.
I
And it
think
may very well be our FEMA reimbursements that they withhold
Because
to
if,
pay that.
Cause
Yeah.
those are grants, if you look at it that way.
They are,
Yeah.
they are, yeah.
Well, I think we have to borrow money, so.
was there any, didn't say anything about going up or down would change the interest. I'm sure it's probably just which the interest rate doesn't even say it's going to stay at that. It fluctuates. It says plus or minus, so it can change.
I thought this was if I read it right, it was
There's
a
a fixed rate.
Fixed
fixed rate.
Oh, with the other one he sent was
No,
the
this is
previous email, because it was an estimate. My apology. And one of the previous ones he wrote out an estimate of what it would look like. My apologies. I think 400,000 is probably a better to be able to pay that school school. Because if we take 3 and can't pay that in full, we're still not paid in full.
Right, right.
What was that number? 300 and for the school?
773,000. And what I have right now that I could send them this minute would be about 300,000.
Which is why the 400 is really.
So we're still at 400 short of that.
Well, I mean, if we really got lean, we could send 4. But again,
Still going the wrong way, yeah. And that's still playing that same guessing game with the FEMA money.
Yeah.
Because we were hoping Andover Weston Road the last time we talked about that other loan. We
Yeah.
were talking like it might be a month, and that
well,
was
I signed the grant
months.
agreements.
Yeah.
And
No, I'm just saying, and
that's what I mean.
you going
It
off
was a
of-
shock to me that nothing. So that's when I emailed her last week and said, "Can I have an update?"
Yeah.
Oh well, there's much more paperwork to be done.
Yeah.
What?
And I still feel that we made the right decision on that one, but this
Yeah.
is more of an amount of money that would square things up or get headed that direction. Because if we had taken that one out, like I said, that payment you got today would have been half of it would have had to go right back to
Right.
that.
It wouldn't be paying for anything.
Yeah.
Well, gotta do what we gotta do. It's pretty sad.
You hear a second on that?
We're gonna look into the 400, or we wanna.
It's just no point in borrowing a bunch of money and still coming up short. I mean, it's not like
So-
we're gonna spend it because we
Do we
have.
want to make a motion to look into 400 and approving
Yeah, I
this?
think we should look
Yeah.
into
I
400.
think we kinda have to, right?
I think
Yeah.
we do. Yeah. I'll
Alright, so I
yeah.
move that,
Who wants to-
no one's saying anything.
Ju-
I'm gonna move that you go back at this paperwork with the bank, only at 400,000, and then maybe clarify with them Robin's question about the wording of the facility will accrue interest on a 30/360 day basis, just to kind of extrapolate what exactly that means, but I would move that we do that at the 400 level and try to get this done as quickly as we can so that we're not late.
Yep, and
with
I
that
second
So-
that.
Then how would that, once she gets the okay from the bank at the 400, what is the best way to make this happen quickly? Would it be to
Gee,
let her
call a
talk to
meeting.
Chris or call a meeting or what do you? how do
Yeah,
you
we
wanna
could
make
just
that?
call a meeting if we need to.
We could do a Zoom meeting. I mean, you could do an emergency meeting to just get us all together and say, yes, let's do that. Or we could say, let's do it now.
But we just would have to discuss, which the motion was already made and seconded, but we'd have to make a decision on if the interest rate changed
Right,
a little bit or the,
So along with my motion.
But we don't have a choice, that's the only thing. As I read this, the reason I brought that up is because I wanted everyone to be aware that it's, that I, the way I read this, I believe it means that, I wish we knew this, we should know this, that we're gonna pay the full 5.35% no matter what. No matter if we pay it off 2 months from now or a month from now or a year from now, we're still gonna pay that amount. Because we'll borrowed up that full amount, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we will pay that full amount of interest no matter when we do it. And that's what I guess that's the only thing that I was wanting to make clear. Or
Yeah,
wanting
that
it to be
doesn't
clear.
seem, it seems counterintuitive to me. I mean, I don't.
And I could be wrong about
Because
this.
I don't think they can charge you interest on money that you've paid back.
You wouldn't think so.
They can't charge you 12
What's that,
months of
30?
interest.
30,
I think that's what that
360.
means is that at 30 days, that interest starts accruing. I think that's because that's the 30 day into the year. So in other words, the minute you get it would be where, you know how in the first month they say when you buy a car, you
Right.
make your first payment 45 days in, and that's when all your interest and everything starts. That's when the program starts. And I think this is that. They're telling you that on a 30-day, so at 30 days after we have that money, that interest is gonna start accruing.
And if we've taken 400,000 out, we're gonna pay 5.35%
Yes.
on 400,000.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but if we pay it off at 6 months, then we're only gonna pay 6 months worth of interest. They can't charge us 12 months of interest on money that we've
Right.
already paid them back.
And we might be able to pay it back in 3 months.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm
Depending on-
kind of dreaming of.
So to add to my motion then, because what did I made a motion that you look to the bank to do the 400,000. The minute that you can get that information, because speed is of the essence here, I make a secondary point that you call it an emergency Zoom meeting where we can all get together over Zoom and indeed say yes.
But do we need to? I was just making the point
Yeah.
about this.
Maybe
Do we
don't
need to? I don't believe we even need to. It would just be that Chris would come and sign the paperwork for it. Am I correct in that? If we all agree and if we all
We
are
agree
okay
right
with
now and say we don't have to meet
if
again
we are
on
all
this.
okay with the interest and how it's
Yeah.
working, then there's no reason to prolong the process. Does that make sense to you, Jeanette, what I'm saying?
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think we need to just do this.
Alright, so then my motion stands as far as I move that you look to get this done to the 400,000. If that can be done in the way that this is stated, then I move that we do it and let Chris sign for it.
I second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Okay.
School meetings.
so the only thing that I have to ask is I was brought to my attention by some residents who are very much want to vote on every budget. They are wondering if it would be possible to open the polls at 7 a.m. rather than 8 for people on their way to drop their kids off at school who can't come back while the polls are open.
So
That
early
earlier.
and absentee ballots are available.
Okay,
So if the poll hours don't work for someone,
they can come in and
they
vote
can
early.
come in anytime between today and June 4th and get a ballot,
And do
vote
it.
here,
Okay,
take it home, drop the envelope in the back slot, so I would say.
that's how you do it. That's how you vote early. Okay. I just said I was asked, so I said I would bring it up and
And I can mail them, I mean, I'm very concerned about the mail, but if
If somebody
someone,
wants
especially
one.
somebody who lives here, if they were to email me tomorrow and say, I'd love to have you mail me a ballot, it goes out in the mail, they then can also bring it in by, on their own, or they can drop it through the mail slot, so it's here by June 4th.
perfect.
So lots of.
It was, I attended that, not the last budget meeting, but the prior one, and it was, the voter turnout was a very big,
I'm
topic.
convinced, I was glad someone finally brought that up. I thought the publicity about it was terrible. Nobody was really that aware of it. And I heard that all day long at the polls. The few people who did know
Yeah.
said, oh, I had to tell my family members because they had no idea.
Yeah, everybody's very
They didn't
torn.
drive by this sign, they said,
Yeah.
they had no idea.
Everybody was-
Never heard a peep from the school board.
Everybody's very torn at that meeting about how social media was the best way, and other people said the Telegraph, or not the Telegraph, the paper, the Journal, and others said that wasn't always every week, and you only have a certain. They just tell everybody to get out and vote, and that's what it was. Just
I put it
spread the
on-
word that the vote for the budget is important, whether you
Right.
whichever way you want to vote on it, but it's important
Just
to get
vote.
out.
I've put it on the landing page of our website. I put it on the Town of Andover Facebook page. It's on the sign on the lawn. And all of those places, and I'm gonna have Andover 250 run it every week. The school board at their next meeting is gonna, I guess, hammer out a little bit, some potential wording on like a flyer that can just be put out, handed out. We'll have some at, every public building location for people to see. Just the bottom line message is just please come vote.
Because there's about 50% in most towns from the original vote, which is not a lot.
So maybe a very small number of people are gonna decide the final outcome.
That's the way they feel that happened. The last one. But it is still
It'll be even more so this time.
and I'd like to pass on the next restructuring meeting, but I didn't go to the last one, so in case they changed it, but it was proposed to reschedule that one, and it was gonna be at Cavendish Elementary again. But I'd have to look up the date in case it got changed at the last meeting.
She covered the FEMA update, didn't we?
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Jeanette.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeanette.
Request for winter sand bids.
I think it's never too early to see if we can.
Yeah.
30 days, right? We just issue that we're requesting bids, and then is it usually 30 days?
Can we leave it open for a while, or how long is
I think you have to put a deadline, because then
Yeah.
people don't get their, they're like, oh, I got so long, and then maybe it passes by. I think a deadline's good. We received several bids last year. I felt like it was a pretty good.
So how long is it usually?
I'd like
that
to
we
see
get
it run
this
for
around?
2 weeks in the
Oh,
paper,
yeah.
at least. Yeah.
I would think maybe you don't wanna open them at the next meeting, but the first meeting in June, perhaps? You wanna give people a month?
Yeah, and the Telegraph too. I see a lot of contractors looking
So
there.
by June 10th?
Hey, we missed something, didn't we? Christmas Tree Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's usually in the high. I mean,
Oh,
We
is
can
it?
we can
Okay.
do that in highway. Where does that go? We can do that. I got a call from the selectman in Wyndham. I wonder what was going on. I guess you talked to him, Cord.
no, I didn't talk to Cord. No, he's the chair of the select board, right? Yeah. No, I didn't speak with him.
And he just wondering, he didn't realize that Andover had any road out there.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing is I'm wondering is if they're gonna run into the same thing we did up to Stanley's, and they were talking about throwing that up. Maybe crossing a town line. We may have to have a joint meeting between the boards.
Oh.
We're gonna look that up in the statutes. It may not imply because we were at the end of the road.
But if it was Wyndham trying to throw it up, they'd have to invite us because we're at the other. Andover's at the other end. Would it be courtesy to do a dual meeting, being that it seems to be they maintain the road for the most part?
Yeah.
I don't see that
They
it would.
received a copy of the warned hearing.
Yeah, so they
Which
could
they're
meet us.
welcome
They
to.
could meet us at the.
Yeah, they could go to the
Yeah.
site visit, they can come
Right.
here, certainly.
But no, I didn't speak with him. I mean, I would have if he wanted to, but I would just give the information I've given anybody else that we're just going to check out of these town roads.
Right.
As I told them, we're in the process of going through single house,
Yep.
driveway, basically. Especially ones that don't meet the criteria for class 3 roads, they're next to impossible to meet.
Yep.
As far as road commissioner's report, the trucks are holding together. He spent $6,000 on the big truck, right?
Yeah.
On the suspension. But
And they ended up doing the culvert on Hilltop, right? They rented a machine to do that.
we got that done, the pavement's done on North Hill.
Now, was that more of a local machine that they rented than I see it was headed the other way?
Was it Regis?
Yeah, I think it was Regis.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
Was his rent, I mean, love to see if his rentals are reasonable. It looked like the same, little bit bigger than what they use in the summertime.
I'm not sure what they
Yeah,
got.
but it had the track pads on it. It looked like, I mean, I don't know, probably he can't give up an excavator for a month in the summer, but
Yeah,
we rent from more local than,
Mhm.
but I'm glad that it was available for them to do that.
that's all I've got for road commissioner.
They started grading. They look good. The roads are
Yeah.
turning out nice.
Financial orders.
Well, let's see.
Yes, sorry.
I see that we're advertising some tax sales in Andover.
We are.
And who, you just officiated that by, that's the select board's not involved, right?
No, she's the tax
Right,
collector.
I'm the delinquent tax collector. So I've made a list and sent out, I guess, warning or final notices before the attorney gets involved, and then I got an attorney involved, and I think by that date there may not be any left. I think once they see it advertised and neighbors start calling, or people they know start calling, or whatever the case may be, then the money comes. So this is just the official documentation from discontinuing Israel Road.
There you go, Susan. I don't know. Let's see if we send that. Sorry.
Next time I come here, I'm gonna get you something snazzy and beautiful that has Susan embroidered on the cover. Because I love you and you're so
Was there any correspondence?
She's like, no.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I saw that. Oh, I
The second
second
one,
it.
All those in
Sorry,
favor?
we're done here
Aye.
laughing away.
Aye.
We're picking on Susan.